All right, so that's what we got out of the Quad meeting. Meanwhile, we've heard the Prime Minister speak today. He was addressing a post-budget webinar, and the seminar was actually titled Developing Tourism in Mission Mode. So the Prime Minister has gone ahead and emphasized on out-of-the-box ideas and a long-term vision for tourism in India. And one of the points was renovating religious sites. He's also added that tourism must be seen in the socio-cultural context in India. And interestingly, the Prime Minister emphasized the need to introduce special packages for destination weddings because he believes that the middle class has become that much more aspirational. Listen into what he said.
साथियों, भारत में हमें टूरिज्म सेक्टर को नई ऊंचाई देने के लिए आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स सोचना होगा और लॉन्ग टर्म प्लानिंग करके चलना होगा। सुविधाएं बढ़ी तो इसका सीधा प्रभाव यात्रियों की संख्या पर पड़ा। टूरिज्म को बढ़ाने के लिए उसके सराउंडिंग जो चीजें होती वो भी बढ़ने लग गई है और ज्यादा संख्या में लोगों के आने का अर्थ है स्थानीय स्तर पर कमाई के ज्यादा अवसर, रोजगार, स्वरोजगार के ज्यादा मौके।
Well, in terms of employment generation, there's no taking away from the potential that the tourism sector holds. But very importantly about destination weddings, besides the whole host of other verticals within tourism that needs out-of-the-box ideas like the Prime Minister is hinting at. Let's get an understanding. My namesake, Vikram Mehta, is joining us. He runs Mpire Weddings and Events along with Veena Bachani, who's the founder of OMO Events. Also, Economist Madan Sabnavis is with us too, just to understand the consumption economy and what role destination weddings perhaps has to play in developing that aspect of an economy, an emerging economy like ours. But really articulating the thought behind the budget outlays for the tourism sector, Vikram, the Prime Minister has spoken of tourism of all kinds. Coastal tourism, beaches, mangroves, Himalayas, adventure, wildlife, ecotourism. There is heritage tourism, spiritual, sports, and of course the possibility of conferences as well. I mean, the list is practically endless. But wedding destinations caught our eye the most. How large is the potential here to attract inbound traffic, to get people from outside India and do their destination weddings here? Where are we at on that front?
Thank you for having me here. So I think it's good to see the Prime Minister also join the bandwagon of something that's already going quite a buzz, especially after COVID, or rather the return of the revenge season as such, as you call it. But I think I would like to believe that we are looking at roughly about, hundreds and hundreds of weddings a day, to be honest. That's what we are going right now in the current season, at least. And I think from what I even read about the article, there's a lot of discussion about religious places or places like, say, for instance, Dharamshala or Kasol or places in the north which are not tapped really, right? Because when we talk about destination weddings, we talk a lot about Rajasthan, Goa, probably Kerala. Of course, the big cities, the metro cities are also included in that, the Bombay, Delhi, Chennai, Bangalore. So, I mean, besides the usual suspects, to kind of explore these destinations will be exciting for us as well as wedding planners if we can encourage tourism and weddings out there. And also to get influx of, I would say, a few hundred weddings at least a month from abroad. I mean, we're talking about a lot of NRIs. I mean, pretty much more than just people living in India. Almost everyone who lives in Dubai, US, UK, the first thing they want to do is probably consider doing a marriage which is authentic back home. So you getting an influx of that business, plus obviously exploring the ongoing business in India, are the two opportunities that we have lying ahead for us.
Yes, I'm looking at the average spends for a wedding, and that can be pretty high. Veena Bachani, very importantly, the Prime Minister has also spoken about it being a myth that tourism is this fancy word that is associated only with high-income groups of the country. He said the India of today is changing this situation. On the ground, how much expansion have you seen of involvement in tourism after the stifling effects of the pandemic were torn down? Which sectors have grown the most when you talk about the different strata of society that is going in for tourism, and some of that revenge spending is happening within that sector?
Hi, thank you for having me here. Yeah, what I would say is that I'm seeing a lot of more weddings after the pandemic. It has increased immensely, like I would say 300% of what it used to be otherwise. And some of these people, some of the clients are all NRIs, mostly NRIs who are coming into India to get married, and it is increasing drastically. Like there are weddings which are happening in May and June, when May and June never used to have so many weddings happening. So in a way, it is a good thing for India because a lot of people are coming to India to get married.
It certainly seems so. Madan Sabnavis, this points towards higher consumption in the economy. Where does India stand at the moment on the consumption matrix among other developing countries? How much of the discretionary spends have we seen grow in huge events like these Baja, Baraat kind of events, the weddings that we speak of so much?
Vikram, in general, what we have seen is that consumption in real terms have gotten affected in the current financial year because of high inflation. So while we are seeing nominal consumption, that is taking into account the price increases, which we have seen in almost every facility, which also goes for a wedding, which means your travel costs have gone up, your catering costs have gone up. I think that has shown an increase, but in real terms, we haven't really seen that kind of increase. So I think today, when we are talking in terms of destination weddings, I think there is definitely scope for something positive to take place, especially if you're talking in terms of foreigners, you're talking of NRIs coming and putting the money here. But say, Vikram, I'm both an economist as well as a banker. And I think the kind of fear which we as bankers have today is that when we see people from the lower income groups going in for destination weddings, that is within India, I'm talking only of Indian citizens, they tend to take on a lot of leverage. So either they're selling property or they are borrowing from banks for personal purposes. So that's some kind of a concern which could be there for the financial system. Not so much that the amount is very large, probably as far as overall credit is concerned, it would be even less than 0.5%. So that may not really be a concern, but definitely in terms of the repayment ability. And what we have seen after the pandemic is there's been this pent-up demand. Everybody wants to spend, you want to do everything in a big way. People who were not able to do it in 2021 have started doing it now. So therefore, definitely from the point of view of the economy, we are definitely seeing a positive impulse, both from domestic as well as what my co-panelists have spoken of, saying that NRIs are also coming in and having lots of marriages taking place, which is good foreign exchange earnings for India. But we have to make sure that if this is happening on account of selling of property or you're borrowing from the banking system, it may not be an unmixed bliss.
Right, so it would be a mixed bag at this point in time, but as the economy develops, how much potential does tourism hold in being really at the vanguard of change when it comes to developing the economy? Vikram, about the infrastructure, the ecosystem that we have to attract more tourism, perhaps especially for destination weddings, how are we doing on that count right now? Because you mentioned quite a few places which are largely untapped, which holds potential for destination weddings. In trying to create that infrastructure, how much more of a push are we going to require, according to you?
So I think it's a process, right? I mean, like any other business or any other city, it's a process. Like I think the way Mr. Modi mentioned about Qatar as well, right? And it took a whole lot of time and a few years to set up Qatar for the whole shebang, right? At the end, and which included hotel developments and all of that. So I think when we are looking at tapping new destinations, for example, let's look at Mussoorie. That's a great spot where people are moving for weddings, right? And Dehradun. So then when you land up looking at Mussoorie, over time, Dehradun has developed with, and when I say developed, I mean, I'm talking about production houses and sound and light companies and, you know, smaller vendors like your dholwalas and safawalas. So I think the influx of service providers, influx of even something like logistics, cars, you know, I don't think all cities are equipped to handle the scale of weddings that are done today. When you have 300, 400 people coming in and the kind of hospitality you need. So I think it's a process. It'll take a few years, not a month, not a few months, but a few years till that particular city or state is self-sufficient. Till then, they're going to get enough support from the others, and that's how it works. If you look at doing a wedding in something like I said, something, let's put it as, say, Andaman Nicobar, or you're doing at Lucknow for that matter, or even if you're doing in, say, Jaisalmer, you're going to get a lot of support from places around. So if you're doing a Jaisalmer, you get support from Jodhpur and Jaipur, where people will help in terms of the transport or the laborers coming in. So I think that it's a process. Infrastructure would take a few years to set up, but it's something that it's a natural progression. When you see that there is a market to be tapped, you will see service providers and everything being set up naturally. You'll see hotels developing. You'll see existing hotels adding rooms, setting up new ballrooms, banquet halls
Yes.
for indoor events. So
Right.
I think it's a very natural trickle effect.
Veena, you run a company which, of course, organizes weddings and events in terms of manpower, because the Prime Minister has also spoken about the employment generation possibilities within the tourism sector. But to get good manpower in the sense that people who understand the newer verticals that are coming in within the wedding or the event businesses, how are we doing? Are you able to find that kind of people, that kind of expertise, that talent? Or we have some way to go? Do we need to wait for MBAs in wedding management, for example?
No, I would say that we have a lot of manpower available to us in terms of having the event management schools, where there's a special cell for wedding management, where people are taught to be wedding planners. So we have a lot of people who are really into weddings and know how to operate in terms of client servicing, in terms of rituals at the weddings that we have to follow as per each customs of each person, each client that is available to us. So there are a lot of these schools that are teaching them how to go about it. So we don't have to worry about it because there is enough manpower for wedding planners. I am doing a lot of weddings out of Bombay, and I am getting a lot of people who are into weddings. Yeah, there is an issue about clients having to go to places which are easily accessible through flights, direct flights.
Yes.
Which is a problem. So that's why there are cities who don't have direct access are not doing so well in terms
Right.
of weddings.
Right. Yes, and Vikram seems to agree on that count as well. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, this comes as news to me that you have specialized courses in wedding management. It's something that I've just learned. But, you know, Madan, the Prime Minister today has said that tourism has the same potential in the country like agriculture, like real estate development, infrastructure, textile. The potential has always been there, Madan. Why do you think India hasn't quite tapped into it for the several opportunities that tourism holds? Because even if we understand some tourism-driven economies in the world, what does it really take to make it one of the mainstays of growth in an emerging market like that of India?
So tourism actually has a lot of strong backward linkages with other industries. So I think that is the big advantage of it. And we have seen that there are several East Asian economies who have actually made it big, with tourism being the main one of the main industries which have been propelling growth. Now in India, I think it's a case of saying that one, if you look at most of the Indians, we all prefer to go overseas for our holidays. So therefore, I think the tourism actually benefits other countries. Like, for example, if you looked at foreign exchange outflow on account of travel, I think it's been phenomenal in the last 1 year. That's one part of it. The second part is I think we need to create the right kind of infrastructure. We need to be more tourist friendly. Now, this doesn't happen in all the states. Now, if I can actually name certain states, if we talk of states like Goa or Kerala, they actually do attract a lot of tourists coming from outside. I'm not talking of marriages, I'm talking of general tourism. You look at some of the northern states, you do have it. But if you look at what kind of infrastructure is being provided by the states, I don't think it's really up to the mark. So therefore, the kind of crowds which we seem to be getting, the kind of tourists we get are more of the budget spenders who come in. We really don't see people with deep pockets who are coming and coming for tourism from overseas. And from India, yes, I think that is something which has definitely been picking up from all levels. Like, for example, I stay here in Mumbai. If you want to go any weekend, probably to our neighboring Khandala and Lonavala,
yes,
the roads are chock-a-block. I mean,
yes,
you don't get, it's difficult to drive. So I think people are traveling, but it's not happening in a big way.
Correct.
I think we need to definitely improve on the infrastructure. I think the facilities which are provided, and more important, I think security.
Yes, it certainly seems to be the case, but that means that coming in from a low base, that's where the potential really is, and that's where we need to tap into. And weddings has always been the big Indian wedding affair, that it's something that we wonder why we haven't tapped into for all the great potential that it holds for the Indian economy. I want to thank all our guests for joining us with their perspective on this. Vikram Mehta and Veena Bachani, and of course, our economist and banker, Madan Sabnavis. Thank you very much for joining us on the potential of the tourism sector in India. Time for us to take another quick break on India Tonight, but much more coming up, including an interaction with Bill Gates. Do stay with us.